Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Sarjun. I'm a data science trainer, a lecturer, and an industry practitioner in this field, and a mentor to the youth. This is the 7th in the series of basic R programming course. Before we start, I would like to reach out to you to follow me on my socials: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. Send me a message, DM, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. With that said, let's get on to today's segment. Okay, so today we're going to be covering vector, lists, and matrices. So there are different types of composite variables that carry more than just one numeric or character value within them. They are vectors, lists, and matrices. There's also data frames, but we're covering that in a later lecture. So today we're going to be doing vector, lists, and matrices. And I know we have somewhat covered them before. I went through vectors versus factors in the previous videos and segments. So go through them if you need to have some intro to it. So here you're going to be doing a bit more vector stuff and list and matrices stuff as well to understand them more in depth. Okay, let me run this surprise warnings and let's move on to vectors. So vectors in R programming is a basic data structure that be of any data type, but all data types must be consistent within it. So if you have all numeric, it's all numeric. If it's all character, it's all character. So that's why vectors must be consistent, right? So let's do a quick question here. A vector. Let's create a vector. A vector. Sorry, this is not a vector. This is a vector of the value c, 1, 2, and 3, right? And we want to print out if a vector is a vector. So we check whether it's vector. We use the isVector function to check whether a vector is a vector. We want to know the class of a vector. And we want to know the type of a vector. Right? So when you run this, you can see that yes, a vector is a vector because that returns true. The class of a vector is of numeric because 1, 2, 3 are all numbers. And the type of is double. Okay. Now, we can also initiate the vector variable using the sequence function, right? The sequence function helps you, instead of you typing, especially if they are sequential numbers, you can just use the vector variable. So we can use b vector, and we can do a sequence of 1 to 10, right? And then we can print b vector, right? We can print b vector. We can print is vector b vector. To check whether b vector is a vector, we can print the class of b vector, as well as we can print the type of b vector. So let's run this. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, true integer class type and integer type of. So this is because the sequential is automatically taking it as an integer, right? On the other hand, we can also do the method with a step. So we can do, let me go and copy this. So instead of just 1 to 10, I want to increase it by steps of 2. So it's going to be 1, then 3, then 5, then 7, then 9, until 10. And you will not take anything after 10 because 10 is the last value that you will look at, because that's the end value. And you want to check the same thing. I want to check b vector, whether it's a vector or not, and so on and so forth. When I run this, you can see yes, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. It is a vector. It's true. Class is of numeric. And in this time, it's double because it's not sequential in terms of 1, 2, 3, in terms of 1 difference. It's going to be 2. So automatically takes double as the form for this data type. So it's kind of done automatically by R itself. So R is smart enough to understand this. Now, moving on, we can also do something a bit more, radical, you would say. right? Sequence 1, 10, 0.1 increment. So this is going to be a lot of numbers, right? Again, I want to check B vector, is vector, class B vector, and type of B vector. You can see there's so many numbers, 1.0 all the way until 10.0. Yes, it is a vector. It's of class numeric, right? And its type of is double. Simple. You can also initiate a vector variable without using sequence variable, right? You can also say B vector is 1 is to 10, just using the colon sign, right? But be careful when you do that. Yep, it's also giving you the integer value as well. Okay, how do you access values within the vector variable? How do you access values? How do you access a value within a vector variable? So now, let me assign a vector called B vector. B vector is equals to 1 is to 10, right? Now, you can index it using, you can pass in the display, the vector variable, B vector with the index, and we can retrieve out the value. So B vector, pass in a square, bracket, and inside this, we can pass in a value, say 5, right? If I pass in the value 5, and if I run this, right? Let me put it in print. print, print, B vector with this square bracket 5, it'll access the value, the value in that position, in the 5th position, and pull out the value. So in this case, it's 5, right? Similarly, I can also do the same thing and print out. So let's do the same thing. B vector 1 is to 10, right? And this time around, I can print out a sequence instead, not just one value. I can print out 5 is to 9th, right? And I'll print out all the values from the 5th position to the 9th position, right? Okay. I can also assign another vector variable, B vector, and display with the brackets with the vector variable, B vector, and a vector with C123 value using the print function. So I can pass in a vector within the vector to pull out which values I want. So here I'm going to print B vector, right? And I'm going to pass in C, 1, 2, 3, right? Close bracket, and sorry, I'm supposed to assign this. I never assigned this. That's why it's printed out 1 to 10. Okay, yeah. So this is what I wanted, right? I can also use Boolean values to print out alternate values. So what I mean by that, right? So I got B vector is 1 is to 10. I can do something like this. Print B vector, right? I can pass in C. I can pass in C. I can pass in the true and then false. I know this sounds a bit weird, but what happens actually? So it will go in, the data true will go into the vector. So 1 to 10, right? The first one will print. So it will print out 1. Then the second one is false. Then it will repeat again. True, false, true, false, true, false. You keep doing that repeatedly. So when I run this, it will print out 1, which is true. 2 is false. 3 is true. 4 is false. 5 is true. 6 is false. 7 is true. 8 is false. 9 is true. And then 10 is false. And then it will stop it with that. Right? Okay. So that's how it works. So let's assign. Okay, so here I'm going to be doing something a bit more drastic. So wait, assign C variable 141, sorry, and 150. So here I'm going to assign B vector is equals to 1 is to 10, right? And I'm going to do C vector is equals to 141 is to 150, right? I'm going to create a D vector. Just practice vector plus and minus. C vector plus b vector, right? And now I want to print out my d vector. That's it. You can see that it adds and it gives you a added value, right? Similarly, let me correct this. Yep, so everything is just that. Okay, so now I'm going to do a minus. Instead of a plus, I'm going to do a minus. So let me just copy this. And I'm going to copy this. Instead of plus, it's going to be a minus, c vector minus. And I'm going to print out my d vector. Oh, sorry, I supposed to minus it. Yep. So all gives me 140, 140, 140, 140, a constant number. Right, I can also do a multiplication. Right, similarly, I can also do a multiplication. So let me copy this. So we will do a vector-wise multiplication, right? A vector element-wise, basically, right? Element-wise. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to times it. Then I'm going to display this value. Print d vector. Gives me 141, 284, 429, and so on and so forth. Right? Yeah. So I can also use sorting using vector variables. Okay. So what does that mean? So let me create a b vector and a c vector. And I do a multiplication. And I can assign a variable called d vector. Okay, which sorts d vector, right? Decreasing equals to true, right? Then I can display it, right? print d vector. You'll just reverse it, right? The biggest number will come in the front and then the smallest number is the back. I can also update elements within the vector variable, right? So here, I can say b vector 1:10, right? I can update. I want my value in the center, the fifth value, not my center, my fifth value to be updated to 50, right? And then I display. Simple. You will change my 5 to 50, right? Okay. What happens if I update it with a string value of 50 instead of just a numeric value 50? And that is something you need to understand, right? And how do we do that? Let's say 1:10. Oops, sorry. 1:10. And then I do a b vector 5. And I go in instead, I go and update it to be a, okay, I want to do print b vector, and I want to do print is dot vector. Let's do everything. B vector. Let's check whether it's still a vector. By me doing that, let's check whether its class is of b vector, and let's check the type of b vector. Right? We want to do a lot of these things. It's always important to check all these things, right? You can see that yes, this is a value. It is still a vector, but it's all characters now. Just because I made that one change. One become character, everything becomes a character. Okay. Quick practice. Assign a variable b vector with 1 to 10. Assign a new variable c vector with even elements from b vector multiplied by 10 value. Then display vector variable c vector output. Okay, pause and try it out, and yeah, then we'll get back to it soon. Okay, how do we do this, right? So we said b vector is equals to 1:10, so it's quite simple. Okay, but we only want to multiply the even values. So it's This is where you need to use the Boolean, right? Remember I did the Boolean thing. So B vector C, right? False, true. So we want the, right? We only want the times 10, right? And then we print C vector. Oops. What is wrong here? Oh, sorry. I think I did something wrong here. Sorry, I used the wrong brackets. My bad. Right, I switched the brackets around. Sorry. Yeah, so 20, 40, 60, 80, and 100. Sometimes you type so fast, you miss the brackets. Okay, the lists in R offer the ability to contain different types of elements in an array-like structure with numeric, characters, vectors, and even lists within it. So list gives you some flexibility, right? So let's create a new list. This time around, list, okay, with the first element as Gary, the second element as architect, so this is what his job is. The third element is his age. The fourth element is maybe is he married or not, so it's false. And the fifth element is his gender, right? Then display the variables, right? So we display print new list. Then we print if it is a vector. We check whether it's a vector or not, right? New list. And then we print to check the class of new list. And we want to check the print the type of new list. Okay, this is where it gets tricky, but let's try it out. So we can see that for the first one, this is the printing of Gary, architect 36, false, male, right? So this is the first printing of new list. Is vector? Yes, it's a vector, but class is of list, type of list. So it's a bit tricky here. Now when you use list, it doesn't tell you it's numeric. It doesn't tell you it's character. It just tells you it's list. So list is where it's anything goes kind of thing. It's not really any format particular. Usually vector formats allows you to multiply, right? Do some computations, right? But in this case, because it's list, it becomes a bit challenging, right? So let's see what are the limitations in a sense. So let's copy this new list, bring it here, right? Basically, this is what you want, right? We create a C vector. C vector. We create 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 6, all the way until 150, right? There's 5 values, right? And then we want to take C vector. Basically, we want to create D vector, which is basically C vector multiply by new list, right? Let's run this, right? Sorry, my bad. I should have done this. I never assigned this. Okay, so when we do this, we get an error because non-numeric argument to binary operator. We can't do that. We can't multiply a list especially with varying values against a vector with consistent values, right? Because there is some problem. It just doesn't work, right? So that's the thing about lists you need to understand, especially if your formats are all very different, right? So let's see how we can access variables within this new list, right? Display the variables with list variable from an index 1 to 5. For the case of 5, we're using here. So let's see. Print. So how do we access the element? 5, right? So here it comes out as male. Simple? Okay. Access list variable specific elements. So let's create this list, new list. Okay. Let's names. Let's name the integers with string values with the names function with new list as a parameter. So we're trying to name them now, right? We want to give them a name. We want to give them this list, this new list name. So so how do we do that? We put names for new list, right? And we set it with a vector. So the first one is name, as we know. The second one is occupation. The third one is his age. I think if you have not figured it out, you know that. The fourth one is whether he's married. And the last one is his gender. So now, what happens is when we do that, we can use the $ in the list variable to call out the respective values. So I can say new list, I can pass in the $, and I can say, what's the name? Right? So it's like a reference point, right? I can also print out the age. Print new list, right? With $, and I can say age. So when I run this, I can get Gary is the new list name, and the age is 36. Okay, I can also update the list specific elements as well. So let me just, in order for me to not to type it out, I can copy this to again, right? Okay, so now I want to change the name Gary to Gary, right? So new list $ with name is Garry. There's a R missing in his name, and his age is also wrong, right? It's 38, right? Somebody say he's 36, but actually that's wrong, right? He's 38. There's a typo in the. So let's print new list. Print new list. Let's see whether they're updated. Oops. There is something that I think I did not do. Oh, the bracket here. Sorry. Okay. So, new list, you can see name is Gary, occupation is architect, age 38. So it's all done. Married, false, gender, male. Okay. Let's see. This seems very similar to the one I just did earlier, right? Yeah, I think I must have copied it twice. Use this variable. Yep, it's the same thing. Okay. Anyway, I'll just do it again, just so that so it's just basically assign a new list with these values, right? And this is the names of these values, right? And then you want to edit it. So this is more like a quick refresher course. $ name is equals to Garry, right? New list $. Sorry. I think I understand what's the difference. I just realized. I thought why I made it the same thing. Because this time around, I'm not using the name. I'm editing using the index. So it's different. Sorry, yeah. I thought I'm doing the same thing. So this time I'm editing directly using the index formation. So the index 1, I'm editing as Garry, which is still possible, and then new. But you think in this case you need to know what's the index, which is not very helpful, because you need to know, okay, index 3, index this. But if you're going to change the occupation or the name, it's quite straightforward, right? So that's the thing, if you use a proper names, you can, when you do programming, you can just change the name, and that is a lot more easier and directly targeted, right? That's what you'll be doing in data frames. Data frames, you can use index, and you can use column names as well, right? So they call it the lock and no, it's not lock. That's for Python. See, this is why I'm very data frames. There are ways to do it for R as well. R has their own column naming convention as well, so you can follow accordingly. So similarly, when you are doing this in this case, you can use indexing method, or you can use the naming method as well. So in both cases, you can assign them. The thing is, if you use the indexing method, The indexing method require you to remember which index you're looking at. And that might be a small little issue because you need to remember which index you're looking at, right? And that is worrying. If not, you can just use the names of the new list, and that will give you directly what is the value, the reference value, the name value that you want to change. Okay, with that said, let's do unlist a list variable. Unlist a list variable, right? You can list it first. So let's learn about what's unlist, right? So num list is equals to list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now this is a list, right? I can do a num vector. I can convert. So basically, unlist means I'm converting it to unlist means num list now becomes a num vector. So I can do a sorry, in this case, it's a num vector, right? Okay, let me change all this to num vector. Num vector and num vector, right? So you're going to do a print num vector, print is dot vector, num vector, print class num vector, and print type of num vector. Okay, when you do that, you can see now it's actually a vector, it's numeric, and it's double. So you have converted a list variable to a vector variable. Okay, quick practice. Request user for 3 string word input. Assign a variable username with input to input name using readline function. Assign a variable occupation name. Use occupation with input to input occupation using readline function. Assign a variable user age with input to input age using readline function. Assign list variable user list with username, user occupation, and user age as parameters, and display the list variable user list output. Okay, try it out. Pause the video and yep, sorry. I think I jumped too fast. Okay, yep. So here it is. Try it out and we should discuss it. So pause the video and try it out first. Okay. Okay. How do we do this? So user name, basically read line, prompt, please enter your name, right? User occupation, right? Oops, sorry, there shouldn't be a space. Again, read line, prompt, please enter your occupation. And then user age, s dot numeric, read line, prompt, please enter your age. Okay, user list. So it's simple. List user name, user occupation, and user age, right? Let's also do a names of user list, right? Is equals to C user name, user occupation. Oops, why did I put an N here? I'm typing and typing N. I also type the N. and user age, right? Maybe just be consistent. We make it all follow the same format. Okay, then print user list. So let's type the Gary, architect, and he's 36 years old. So you can see username is Gary, user occupation is architect, and user age is 36. Okay, moving on. Matrices. So matrices are R objects in which elements are arranged in a 2D manner and tend to contain elements of the same data type. It would be possible to hold elements of different data types, but the power of matrices are best used when the data is in a numeric data type format. Right? Let's show how this works. Let's create a vector, a vector, using the sequence variable 1 and 90. Okay? And then we're going to create a matrix M, right? Using the matrix function for a vector. And I'm going to create n row equals to 10, right? And I'm going to create by row equals to true. So if you don't put by row equals to true, it will go downwards, right? I'll show you how that works. Okay, let's see what happens if I don't put a by row equals to true and I put a by row equals to true. Let me just do it with true first, then show you how this is different. So print is vector M, right? And then print class of M, and then print type of M, right? When I do that, you can see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. If I put by row is equals to false, you can see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. It's going downwards, right? So that's the difference. So that's why we do a by row equals to true. Then the orientation changes this way. Okay, whether it's a vector, it's false, it's not a vector, it's a matrix instead, and it's of integer data type. Okay. So similarly, I think I just showed you this example. I can just copy this and paste it here, right? Control C, Control V, and then I Control C and Control V. So the only thing here is instead of by, so let me Control C and so this is just the reverse of it. Instead of going like this by row, it's going by column, going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10. Okay, moving on, right? Okay, what happens if we do something weird, right? What happens if we do not provide, because 10 is even, right? All your values from 1 to 90 are nicely allocated, right? In this example, right? Well, what happens if I do something funny, right? What happens if I set a vector CQ sequence 1 to 90, okay, and I do a M matrix, right? Matrix X, not C, a vector, right? Okay, matrix here is the matrix, not the movie Matrix, not the Keanu Reeves. So instead of 10, I put 11, right? I put by row equals to true, right? And then I copy all this and I print. Okay, so the code still somewhat works, but it throws this. Okay, it throws this weird. But I turn off the warning message. But there will be a warning error, right? Let me just, for the sake of this analysis, I will turn off this options. Okay. Instead of -1, I set it back to on. Let me run this because I want to see that error. right? So this is the one, right? I want to, sorry, I want to, okay, because my mouse keeps jumping. You can see that now I have a warning error. The warning error is saying data length 90 is not a submultiple or multiple of number of rows 11. So this is a warning. It's telling you, no, this is not right. Even though it does it for you, it's still telling you something is wrong, right? Because 11 and 90 is not a factor. So in matrix, as I told you, you must be careful. You need to follow certain rules, and these are the certain rules that you need to follow as well. Okay, so you must make sure that you have to make sure that the matrix is nicely formed. So those kind of stuff. Okay. Okay, so let's try something else. Let's assign a variable, a vector, seq 1 to 90, right? Assign a variable m, matrix, okay, with a vector, n row equals to 10, okay, by row equals to true. Okay, all this is good. Okay, we print m, and we print just something to just separate it, right? Okay, and then we extract print m. Okay, we're going to print the first value is fifth, and then a comma. Okay, then we're going to run this. So you can see it takes out, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, this whole, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this whole value. 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. It takes out this whole 5 comma. So it takes out this whole 5 comma. So with that said, what happens if I do the same thing, but instead of 5 comma, I put comma 5. Right? Let's try that out. Okay, so let me just copy. I don't want to I don't want to keep typing out again. Oops. Okay, so just pause the video and copy if you don't want. If you want, you also can copy and paste it. Right, so I'm going to print. Earlier I did 5 comma. Now I'm going to do, and not small m, big m. Now I'm going to do comma 5. Right, so then I'm going to pull out this whole row right? This whole column. Right. Earlier I pull out the row, column. Yeah, one is row, the other one is column. Yeah. So now I'm going to pull out 5, 14, 23, 32, 41, 50, 59, 68, 77, and 86. This whole thing, right? This whole thing. I can't seem to bring it downwards, but yeah, this is what I meant, right? Okay. Therefore, I can also access specific elements, right? I can also access specific elements, right? So I need to pass in 2 values if I want to access. So unlike lists and vectors where you only need to pass in 1 value, here I need to pass in 2 values, right? So let me copy this. So let's print m. This time I want to pass in 5 as the first, that means row 5, column 2, right? What is the value? Value is 38. So let's look at it. Row 5, which is this, and this is the column 2 value, 38. Make sense? Yeah, so that's how it works. Okay, update the matrix variable specific values. I can update it, right? Okay. So assign a vector seq 1. See, I'm doing this every time. Actually, I don't have to do it every time, but just for specific purposes, it's better I do it every time, right? M 5, comma 2. I'm going to assign it to the value 99. Similarly, not small m, big M. Again, big M 2, comma 5. I'm going to assign the value 99. Okay, and I'm going to display M. Okay, you can see that my value 38 has now become 99, and my value 14 has also become 99, right? So that's how I can assign them with specific values, right? I can also update the variable with specific values by doing some, some simple manipulation. So let's try. A vector equals to sequence 1, 90, right? And I can do this. This is my matrix, and now I want to create a new matrix, right? With simple maths, right? M plus 1. So the entire matrix will shift by 1. Let me print N, which is my new matrix. See, all the way from 2 onwards. Wow, that works very, 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 very well, right? I can also do what we call you can say a simple plus, simple addition, right? Let's try. Okay, A vector seq 1, 90, B vector seq. Okay, the earlier one 1, 90, I want it to increment by 1 steps of 1, so I have the same thing. So just to be specific, this one I want it to be from 90 to 1 in steps of -1, right? And I want to create two matrices, n with a vector, m with a vector, n with b vector, n row, right? And I want to create a new value p is equal to m plus n, right? Okay. Let's display all. Let's print m, print m, print n, print n, and print p, print p. Let's see everything, right? So m 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way to 90, n 90 to all the way to 1, and p just keep adding, right? And all of them are same value, 91, 91, 91, 91, 91. Okay, I can also do the same thing, right? I can also do the same thing. I'm going to copy the same thing actually. But instead of m plus 1, I'm going to do m minus n. So let me just copy all the way until here. And I'll replace this whole thing because it's exactly the same except, yeah, until here. Right, all the way until here. Then here, instead of plus, I'm going to do a minus. Actually, I can just copy this. I can just type that out. Right, so here is going to be p m minus n, and I'm going to print out all this. Oops. There is some, oops, yep, see, that's the thing. Sorry, because earlier I put an m minus, some typo error here. This value there was a space between this value, shouldn't be, that's why I got some weird numbers coming out. So yeah, so be careful that when you do assignment sign, there's no space between this. Yeah, then that will cause another problem. Right, so when you run this, you will see that the m is this value 1 to 90, n is 90 to 1, and when you minus, you get all these negative values all the way negative 89 to all the way to positive 89. Okay, your favorite part, right? Take 5 minutes, assign a vector variable a vector with a sequence function with 1 to 90 and 1 as parameter, step as 1 lah. Assign a matrix variable m with the matrix function with a vector as the first parameter, n row set to 10 and by row set to true. Then update the 6th column in matrix variable m with values set to 0, and the 8th row in matrix variable m with values set to 1. Then display the matrix variable m output. Okay, pause the video, try it out. Okay, it's interesting, so just try it out. Okay, simple one, a vector seq, right? 1, 90 steps of 1, right? And then M matrix A vector n row equals to 10 by row equals to true, right? That's it. So you're supposed to update the sixth column, means all the sixth column, the whole column to 0. So that's step number 1. So M, comma 6, oops, not a small m, big M, comma 6. I need to update this whole thing to 0. That's step 1. Do not do the other way around. The other way around, there'll be a problem. Let me explain what's the problem. Okay. M, the second one, I need to update the 8th row, everything to 1. Right? And then I print M. That's it. This answer. Right? Okay, the trick is if you do, you can see the entire 6th column is all 0 except for the 8th one, the 8th 6 value, which is this one. And the entire 8th row is all 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. The trick here is you should do the column first before you do the row, because that's the instruction, right? If you do the row first, then do the column, then this will be 0, right? And then it's wrong for this step, right? You don't want that to happen, so you need to follow the sequence. Okay, with that said, we have come to the end of today's segment. Till the next lesson, see ya.